Weird things have been happening to me ever since I decided to move into my new apartment. Things have been moving around and disappearing, and I don't know why. At first, the changes were subtle. I left my phone on the bed, only to return and find it on the dresser. But things began to escalate quickly. I would come back home to see my room in a mess. With the drawers open and my clothes all over the place, I couldn't figure out how anyone would have been able to enter my apartment, as there was no way anyone could have broken in, except the window, which I always keep closed and locked. The last straw was when I came home from work after a long day, only to come home and see my room looking as if though it had been hit by a tornado. I was fed up. I was determined to catch the person who kept destroying my place, so I came up with a plan. I went out and bought a video camera from a nearby store and took it home. The next day before leaving for work, I turned the camera on and cleverly hid it in a space on my bookshelf. My coworker, who knew about my situation, seemed to like my plan. After work, I went home giddy with anxiety. As I expected, I came home to the usual mess. I retrieved the camera from the bookshelf and decided to check the footage. I stared at the screen as I saw myself leave for work. Then, about 20 minutes later, I saw the door to my room open and a tall woman enter. She was wearing rugged clothes, and her hair was covering her face. A chill ran down my spine when I saw the huge butcher's knife she was carrying. I watched in horror as she started to pull things out of my cupboards and sniffed at my clothes. Then, after she was gone, she opened the door to my closet and got in. I then saw myself enter the room again after work and take the camera. I called my coworker to tell her everything I saw. I dialed her number on my phone and began to hurriedly tell her about what I experienced. My coworker became suddenly quiet. After a long silence, she finally said, her voice shaking, Did you, see her get out of your closet?" A chill ran down my spine. My blood seemed to freeze. I dropped my phone and it fell to the ground with a sickening thud. I could feel my heart throbbing with fear in my chest. I broke out in a cold sweat, not daring to move from my spot. It was then that I could hear the sound of my closet door creaking open. I will try my best to remember all of the details, but my mind has repressed a lot of it. Around June of 2016, my mother and I were living in a small apartment. There was no basement or attic, obviously, but there was one small, tiny crawl space in the closet floor of my bedroom. I never looked in it. I suppose some people would be overwhelmed with the curiosity, but my mind already imagined all the worst scenarios. I decided to leave whatever dead bodies and ghosts were down there for whoever rented after us. It was a nice apartment, small but perfect for the two of us. We lived there for a few peaceful months, until the noises started. It was nothing extreme, just the odd bump in the night, and particularly scratching. My mom just brushed it off as rats in the walls. As long as they stayed in there, I saw no reason to get rid of them. A week or two later, I had already grown used to the noise. It became almost comforting, in a way. After all, I never really liked the silence. That is until I woke up one night to a different noise. A rolling sound, eerily similar to the sound my closet made when I opened it. I peeked my eyes open and looked over, but I couldn't make out anything in the dark. I thought maybe I saw something move, but I was well aware of how the mind plays tricks on you in the dark. There was only one way to find out. I turned on my lamp. I feel like crying just writing this out. It's been almost a year since I've had to recall this night. When I turned on the light, I expected to just see a closet full of coats and clothes. But what I saw was much, much worse. It was an eye. Not just an eye, but the entire half of someone's face, barely visible in the tiny crack he opened in my closet. He didn't even react to being caught. No smile, no fear, just staring at me. My heart has never beat faster than that night. I wish I screamed or maced him or something, but I just stared back, frozen in time until I couldn't hold it in anymore. I began sobbing loudly. I think I tried to say something along the lines of, "What do you want?" but it was gargled by me crying. He opened the door more. I could now see his entire body. Shh. I lost my breath at that. Hearing him made it real. I couldn't pretend this was a hallucination anymore. At this, I sat up and pressed my back against the wall. "It's okay," he said, so cheerfully. It gives me chills just remembering it. This is when I finally had the courage to run out of my room. This creep knew my name. He knew my name. My mom, still half asleep while she called the police, thought I had imagined it, of course. By the time the police got there, he would already be long gone. All that was left of him was that damn crawl space. I still never looked inside. I wish I did. Having some sort of proof of this, I don't know, maybe comfort me, because at least everyone would know I'm not crazy. Apparently he'd been living in there. For how long, I don't know, but the officers who first arrived on the scene said that there were tally marks inside the crawl space. I didn't want to know how many. I didn't want to know whether he was marking days or weeks. I just wanted to leave that apartment, and we did. The police never found him. Not for certain, anyway. They thought they matched a homeless guy who matched his description, but he was apparently unresponsive. I've always thought they didn't take it seriously. Even after I told them that he knew my name, they thought that given how long he'd seemingly been squatting there, he had possibly heard my name through the floorboards. My fiance and I purchased a foreclosed home in a not-so-great neighborhood a few years back. We ignored the area because of the great price, but now realize we were idiots because of the things like this. I'm laying in bed, barely awake, while watching TV. My fiance is still at work, so I can't sleep. It's 2 a.m. and I'm barely dozing off to the crime show that was on when I hear scratching at the window. The window that was 1 foot away from me while laying in bed. I remember thinking, "Damn squirrels," when I heard the squirrels start cursing and mumbling. Then the sound of a screwdriver lifting the window frame. I started screaming bloody murder and that I have a gun and I'm calling the cops. The scratching noises stopped, and by the time the cops got to my door and searched the yard, there was no one there. Thinking, oh great, they think I'm crazy. I thank them, and as they're walking back to their cars, their radios all start going off at once that there was another break-in reported in my neighborhood. The officers go scrambling off and I slam the door and lock it, once again freaking out. I go to get back in bed to wait for my fiance to get home. He calls on his way home and wants me to stay on the phone with him until he gets here. I hear loud footsteps on the wooden ramp in our backyard and say, "Oh good, you're home," and hang up, walking to the back door. He called me straight back and told me he wasn't even in the neighborhood, so once again, I'm calling 911 and freaking out. He and the cops get there at the same time and search the yard again. Apparently, they had been getting calls all night about some meth head trying to break into new homes with a screwdriver. They had been one step behind him the whole night, and they had cruisers everywhere.